Because I know a couple of women that can pass a background check and will be more than happy to be on the arms of a handsome, intelligent, rich, high-powered man who won't ask any questions and won't be expecting any depth. They'll be impressed by the tailored suit, the diamonds in your ear, and the flashy watch. Who wears all that to an ice cream date? This is Bedtime Stories, Grownup Edition, Genesis, Part 6. When we left off in bonus episode 1, parts 1 and 2, we got a high-level accounting of how all of the major members in the family intended to employ security measures in the face of credible threats made by Stanley and the letters that he left for his immediate family. We also learned that Saint and Sincere had very different ideas about the progression of Saint's career with the St. James organization. While Catherine had no doubt with training and guidance, Sincere could be a great leader. It appeared that she was absolutely correct in her estimation, that he needed a particular kind of woman to walk with him on that journey. Unfortunately, after Sincere's lackluster performance during his date with Natalia, she wasn't interested in being that woman. She gave what was probably her best effort at letting that man down easy, and he did not take too kindly to it. In his feelings, not used to rejection, he lashed out. And as a result, Natalia stood up and walked out of the ice cream parlor. She wasn't for none of that. And Sincere was so caught up in his emotions that he failed to give the signal to his security that the date was ending. When he'd used an expletive to describe her personality, he'd said it with his chest and he meant every word. Unfortunately, though, watching her back as she strolled casually out of the ice cream parlor like she was completely unaffected gave him a jolt of reality. This woman was nothing like what he was used to. It was not in his best interest to let her get away. He didn't know what the hell was happening. First, his brother had bust his bubble, and now this woman had crumpled him up like a napkin and tossed him to the side. And he was sitting there looking like hardship and struggle. He could not let the date end like that. He threw caution to the wind, forgot all about security, jumped up and ran out of the ice cream parlor behind Natalia. When he'd almost caught up to her, she spun around and said, "Nigga, what the hell are you doing?" Caught off guard, Sincere said, "But wait, I want..." Natalia said, "Go back inside now." Sincere said, "Come with me." Natalia said, "Fine, but let's go." They both speed walked back inside like grannies in the mall. And when they were back at the table that they'd abandoned, Natalia did not miss the look of frustration on the woman's face at the table adjacent to them. She was security. Sincere had just completely obliterated the security plan, put himself in danger, and unknowingly put Natalia in danger too. Natalia said, "You gotta be one of the dumbest niggas I've ever met. You know that? You look good. You clean up well. You appear to be book smart, and you have to have some redeeming qualities. But your common sense is shot. Why would you rush out of here like that? I'm sure that there were signals in place that you were supposed to give before you exited this building." Natalia was frustrated and she had intensity all in her voice, but she actually had a pretty low tone. Sincere said, "What you know about all that?" Natalia said, "I am not new to this, but it would seem that you are. Why would you agree to meet me here if you didn't know how to handle it? And why would you attempt to insult me and then follow me out of here?" Sincere said, "My bad, yo." Natalia said, "Excuse me?" Sincere said, "I apologize." Natalia said, "Listen to me, okay? I will never let somebody I don't even know, someone who contributes nothing to my life, hurt me with their words. You were looking for a reaction. I get that. But all I got for you is goodbye. Because even though I could care less what you think of me or what you say about me, I'll never let a nigga play in my face. You don't know how to talk to women. I suspect you don't even know how to have a relationship because you clearly don't know how to conduct yourself on a date. But even still, this wasn't supposed to be a performative experience. I don't care what your favorite color is. I can use my skills at observation for that. And I shouldn't need to tell you what my favorite food is. If you actually spend time getting to know a woman, that's something you'll discover. You spent this entire time asking questions like you was checking off boxes. The realest thing that you told me today is that while you are an educated man, you don't value exercising your mind. Sincere said, "I ain't say that." Natalia said, "Not in so many words, but my deductive reasoning skills are good. Why are you here, Sincere? Why did you blow up your security plan to chase me outside? Is this about you having a hard time with the word no, or about you fulfilling the obligation that you have to your family? Because I know a couple of women that can pass a background check and will be more than happy to be on the arms of a handsome, intelligent, rich, high-powered man who won't ask any questions and won't be expecting any depth. They'll be impressed by the tailored suit, the diamonds in your ear, and the flashy watch. Who wears all that to an ice cream date? For Natalia's part, she was dressed down and properly dressed for the occasion. She looked very nice, but her outfit and jewelry were very understated. Sincere said, You just asked me like 1,000 questions. First of all, I'm dressed like this because I was hoping that we would go from ice cream to dinner in an environment where this getup is absolutely appropriate. Natalia said, but mine isn't. So you prepared yourself as if you just knew that it was going to happen. I like your confidence, but it's short-sighted because you didn't behave in a way that would make it worth my while to extend this date. Sincere said, that's just it. You said that this was more than just performative. Yet you keep talking about my behavior. I was trying to go with the flow. Natalia said, you want to date a woman like me. You need to be a thermostat, not a thermometer. Sincere said, I love your wordplay. And I'm not looking for a woman that's going to go along to get along. I'm not just here. I didn't just follow you because I don't like the word no. I shouldn't have said what I said, and I really didn't mean it. Natalia said, yes, you did. Sincere said, well, and they both chuckled. Sincere said, it wasn't going how I hoped, and I lost the plot. But you got to admit, you're not giving me a fair chance here. Natalia said, my father didn't raise me to give men chances. Most men only get one. You are on your third. Sincere said, well, why are you giving me so many chances? Is it because you work for my cousin's wife or because you heard that I'm going to be big time and you want in? Natalia laughed hysterically. Then she said, I picked this place because I could control the environment. I know the owners. They're my friends. We both know that there's a situation right now. And the only reason why I didn't cancel this date is because I have security of my own. I was fine when I walked out of here. But the minute you walked out behind me, you interfered with my safety plan. I'd never walk out of an establishment with a man. Because if there are enemies around and they can't follow me or get to me, I'd never want to make whomever I'm on a date with identifiable and thus vulnerable. So now my security, who are also stationed outside, are going to have to signal me when it's safe for me to leave again. All because you lack impulse control. This is not really a third chance for you. This is all about me. But since we're here, you should probably tell me, who are you? And why should I even want to get to know you better? Sincere said, you gotta be one of the most intriguing women I have ever met in my life. Under any other set of circumstances, I'd tell you to kick rocks. And not even because I wouldn't be interested, but because I wouldn't know what to do with you. You wanna know who I am? Fine. I'm a man who didn't even know his own last name until a few months ago. I didn't even really know who my father was or what he was on. I knew him, I saw him. He was active in my life, but he hid the fact that he was a married man and the head of a criminal organization. He taught me everything he could in preparation for me to take his seat at the table without telling me that that's what he was doing. I was raised by a woman who made it her life's work to eat off of other people's tables. She spent 25 years of her life either being or trying to be my father's mistress, and she used dubious tactics to procreate with that man. I'm the result of one of her damn schemes. And now she's dead, and so is he. I can't ask either of them any questions, clear up any confusion, heal any of the hurt. My stepmother, Catherine, is the only woman who's ever seen me for who I am. Wanted the best for me and wanted me to be my best. Not for what she could get out of it, but for who she could help me become. And she's taught me two things. One, you can't expect to get healing in the same place where you got hurt. And there is a woman somewhere out there who'll be the yin to my yang. I'm just trying to find her. The only experience I've ever had with a woman that wasn't about what I could get out of it was in my role as the oldest brother. I have 3 sisters who are triplets, and all they have in common is their appearance. One sister's a lesbian, the second one's a holy roller, and the third one plays niggas for sport. Not one of them has ever asked me for any advice on how to be women or how to treat men. I grew up in an environment where my family was the darkest thing on the block. So all of the females available to me were members of the clear community. And if you know anything about that, you already know how they get down. Natalia said, no, I don't. And Sincere said, yes, you do. Fine. You want to hear me say it? They did the chasing. They gave it up with very little effort. I was a ball player with nice things. Tall, dark, and handsome, and I laid good pipe. All they wanted was trinkets and bragging rights in exchange for doing the nastiest things I could think of. Natalia said, understood. That makes a lot of sense. In her mind, she was thinking, growing up in a household with only 3 younger sisters, being raised by a mother who was clearly trifling, and having a father who had more secrets than he had time, Sincere couldn't have learned how to handle women, how to have real relationships with women, how to be the kind of man a real woman would want to have a relationship with. But that did not mean that he was unredeemable. And it certainly didn't mean that he wasn't capable. So she asked, were there no other men in your life, though? You talked about the women, but Sincere said, my younger brother. But while I was the oldest, truth be told, he was more like the older brother. He dropped some jewels on me this morning, and that kind of had me in my feelings, too. I'd assumed that he was going to support me in the family business, and he shot me down today. So Natalia asked, so he's not in the life? Sincere said he is, but he's refusing to be in it in the capacity that I'd prefer. I'm sure you understand that I can't really talk about that. Natalia said, of course. I'm sure you know that my father's in the life, and I'm not going to talk about that. Sincere asked, is that how you ended up working at Vibrantly You? Natalia said, yes and no. I got the job on my own merit, but my boss knows the importance of hiring individuals who know the value of discretion and understand that their safety is directly connected to ensuring the safety of her and her family. And I fit that bill. Sincere said, what about you? Why you so no nonsense? Natalia said, because I was raised by a real nigga. I don't know what kind of timeline your stepmother gave you for securing a wife, but two things you absolutely need to know. If we're going to continue getting to know one another, one, we're going to take our time. And two, you're going to need my father's approval before I can see you as anything more than a man who I'm getting to know. Sincere asked, that mean you going to see other people? Natalia said, we are not at a place where we can even discuss exclusivity. I haven't even agreed to go with you on another damn date. And for the record, I won't be going with you to dinner. I'm simply waiting for the signal that I can leave. But so you know, you don't need to be anybody else. Just be yourself, while also making an effort to learn and practice the habits of a gentleman. I don't usually give people the code, but after what you shared, I can see that you're coming to the table with a disadvantage. Not everyone gets to have a father as wonderful as mine. While you're learning how to do the job your father left for you, talk to the men in your family. The ones who are living the life you say you want, who have the kind of wives that you say you desire. Don't just learn what to do. And all by getting, get an understanding. Even if things don't work out between you and I, the wisdom that they can impart is wisdom that you are going to need if you plan to be a husband to a woman who wants more than trinkets and bragging rights. When Sincere arrived back at the family complex in Denton, Q was waiting for him on the porch of the house that Sincere had been staying in. When Sincere got to the front door, Q asked, how'd it go? Sincere said, we got off to a real rocky start. I almost blew it, but she agreed to go with me to dinner next Friday. She still ain't give me her damn phone number, though. And she won't let me pick her up. She gonna meet me at the spot. When they got inside the house, Q said, so you're not gonna mention how you screwed the security plan up? Sincere said, damn, you heard about that already? Q said, I heard about it immediately. First of all, how you let your date sneak up on you? And what the hell would possess you to run outside on the street, completely abandon all the signals, and fail to see any of the signals that the security was giving you? You ain't just put you in danger, you put her in danger. Sincere said, man, I know. I wasn't thinking. Q said, I get that part. And I know that you're young. This is all new for you. But you gotta think like a boss. Sincere said, that's what she said. Damn, that girl fire, man. Matter of fact, I need your help with something, but let me call and check with this man and see what happened when they followed her. Then Sincere called the general that he'd worked with to compile the security plan and research Natalia. The general said following her was a no-go. Apparently she had security in place. Did you know that? Sincere said, yeah, she ended up telling me when we went back in the ice cream parlor. The general said, our men were cut off and confronted by Lopez soldiers. Sincere said, yeah, she said her father is big time and she ain't ID him and she wasn't trying to talk about him either. The general said, smart woman. Sincere said, I feel that, but I thought y'all said that it's important for me to know everything I can about a woman before I get all involved with her. In unison, Q and the general both said, scrap that. Then Q said, in this particular case, you already know that she's connected and she's connected with the right people. That don't mean she a good person. Just like it doesn't mean that you a good person. Hell, ain't no good people. What you want to know can't be found in a file anyway. You want to know what her values are, what her goals and aspirations are, how she's going to show up in a relationship. If she has any other suitors, exes, or knuckleheads in her life who just won't go away, who might pose a problem. What kind of wife and mother she wants to be, if she wants to be one at all. What her expectations are for how she'll be handled in a relationship. What her deal breakers and non-negotiables are. What you can expect from her from one day to the next. And most important, what her expectations are and whether you can meet them. Sincere said, and when do I find out how she give it up in the bed? Q said, you're a knucklehead. You'll find that out when she's ready. And the fact that she ain't give you her phone number should be all the indication that you need that she ain't driving in the fast lane. If you can't handle that, leave that girl alone. Sincere said, y'all asking a lot of a nigga. I ain't never had to wait on no snatch. Q said, what do you want? Sincere said, I want her. Q said, no. What do you want long term? Sincere said, I want to be the kingpin. I want a wife and kids at home. I told you all that. Q said, I ain't asking for me. You're going to have to put aside what you used to and keep your mind focused on what you say you want. You can't get what you want doing what you used to do because you can't get what you want from the kind of women you used to. You think Donovan got Maribel doing what he used to do? Sincere said, Donovan used to give it up filthy. Q said, you, Donovan, and your father have a whole lot in common. Look, I'm willing to teach you everything I know about the business, but I'm also willing to teach you everything I know about life. But I'm not interested in wasting my damn time. I got kids of my own that I'm raising, and I spent 30-something years fighting with my damn brother, trying to help him be the man that everybody but him knew that he could be. I ain't got that kind of time. And neither do you. And you damn sure can't be the kind of man, husband, and father that your father was. You need to be committed to ending generational curses. We got too much going on. If you're serious, Sincere said, nah, I'm serious, cuz. I'm not gonna get another date with Natalia. I can't screw up on Friday like I did today. Then Q agreed to set up a meeting with the fellas. It was time that Q orchestrate one of the kinds of men's meetings that his father used to hold. Then Q said, your sister Chantal is gonna be here tonight. You good with her staying here with you, or you want her someplace else? Sincere said, nah, I'm good with her being here. I want to pick her brain anyway and see how she's doing after her pastor got busted in the raids. Chantal had had an inappropriate obsession with her lifelong pastor, and that pastor had been caught up in a scandal or two. Back when Pastor Corey was an undercover FBI agent, when the triplets were undergoing their wilderness tests, Pastor Corey was the one who broke the bad news to Chantal. He'd supported her through that emotional and spiritual crisis, and it appeared that her relationship with Christ was still intact. When her pastor was later arrested and brought up on federal charges connected with crimes against children, Chantal had fallen apart, and Sincere hadn't been there to help her put the pieces back together, because he was at the roundtable meeting. It was Saint who flew back to Miami to support his baby sister. Saint who'd given Sincere the update on how she was doing. And Saint who'd remained in contact with all three of his sisters to ensure that they were good with this transition into their paternal family, just like he was the one who flew back home to tell them about their mother's death. Unfortunately, though, when Chantal arrived, she wasn't at all interested in having a kumbaya moment with her oldest brother. She said, Sincere, I'm just here because the family said they needed my help, and apparently this is the safest place that I can be right now. I'd much rather be in my dorm room, preparing for class tomorrow, Bible study on Wednesday, and choir rehearsal Thursday. But since you, Saint, and Star have decided that y'all want to be criminals, I was forced to abandon my life, get on a plane, and fly clear across the country. The only saving grace is that I like kids. And I was promised that I could lead them in worship and teach them more about Christ's love. And since the only other option was to go to Trinidad with Catherine, I figured this was my best option. But I'm not interested in appeasing your guilt around your abandonment of your family. Sincere said, abandonment? Before all this started, I was in New York, and y'all was living your lives just fine without me in Florida. Nothing has changed, Chantal. If you need me, I'm there. But it's your responsibility to tell me what you need. I'm not a damn mind reader. And I got entirely too much on my plate to be babysitting any of y'all. We all inherited a life that we didn't ask for. You want to be mad at somebody? Be mad at your mother. Chantal said, what will be the point of that? She's dead. Not to mention, you look like you got that all sewed up. You're wearing your mother wound like a badge of honor. Please don't go out into the world and make your unhealed trauma some poor woman's problem. Heal that wound. Get right with God before you waste any woman's time. Sincere said, yeah, because you over being groomed by your pastor. Chantal said, I was not groomed. He was an exceptional leader and more of a father to me than ours was. I know what they said he did. Sincere said what they said he did. You know they got him on video, right? Chantal said, whatever. The point is, he's doing time. And he's no longer a part of my life. So he should no longer be a topic of conversation. And y'all can stop needling me with his supposed bad deeds. Sincere said, supposed? Why does it sound like you in denial? Like you don't really believe that he's guilty of the atrocities that he's been charged with? Chantal said, because I believe in innocent until proven guilty. And I also believe that every single person battles with some sin that God is trying to deal with them about. Some of those sins come out in the forefront and become public knowledge. And some of them people battle with secretly, and only they and God know about them. Either way, we all have our day of reckoning, and none of us can escape the hand of God. With the same hand, he blesses and he curses. He also corrects and comforts. And since I know that I'm not without sin, I'm not going to sit in the seat of judgment against him. Instead, I've chosen to pray for him and for his family, for the entire congregation that was left devastated. Sincere said, that's all well and good, but why you don't have the same compassion for me? You don't seem to have a problem with judging my decisions. Chantal said, because you refuse to come to repentance, and you've chosen a life that puts everybody in danger. You claim that you said yes to save our mother, but somehow she managed to still end up dead. You can walk away, Sincere, but you won't. You want to be Nigel Jr., You want to prove to the world that you're a better man than he was. You want to carry on his legacy and be a gangster and a gentleman. You think that the only way you can make your existence palatable, the only way you can justify the choices that our parents made, is to take a walk in that man's shoes and wear them better. I sure hope you don't live to regret it. I pray that we don't all live to regret it.
Remember that day you showed me that gat, that 9? Put it in my palm when I was young and said that would be mine. Turned me out.